When last we left our intrepid adventurers,
They were having stomach issues.
no, brain issues.
That's much more serious.
Two of us had lost our brains. It was seriously impacting our performance. We weren't doing as well as normal with our brains missing.
Yeah, they were at -4.
Yeah. I was at a total of -9 because even though I was missing my brain, I still had a headache. That's fairness for you.
Wait, it transferred?
Well, it's because she was remotely puppeting her body from her brain using the power of the elder brain. So her brain had a headache, then she -5. Then she was remotely puppeting it -4.
Oh, I just thought like the penalty was stored in her fat cells or something.
No, I wasn't having a fat ache. So we were going to go into the temple, which is what they'd been trying to get us to do all along.
Right. And then you're going to kill them all.
Well, I killed them all because some of them had sort of come around to realize, hey, maybe this brain-eating stuff is dumb and we should do it.
Right, Civil War.
Yeah. Every campaign we seem to do that. Spark civil wars in our enemies. Yeah, we go up to the temple and we barge on in to this huge room. It's got basically a circular room, huge circular room with a big circular pit in the center that's full of brain.
Including yours and Hank's.
Including mine and Hank's. We can see two brains sort of sitting on top of all the other brains. They're the freshest. We don't know which is which. And around the outside of this room, the outer edge of the room, there's a bunch of alcoves with... How many mind flayers were there? Was it 20? 20 mind flayers. And they're tough. They're, level 20 plus. The brain itself, the master brain, is a level 25 controller. The leader of the mind flayers, who is on the brain side, is a level 24 controller, I think it was. Yeah. Elites and stuff.
The party's level 19.
So even though...
They're tough.
Yeah. Even though a few of them have flipped and are fighting on our side, it's still going to be really tough.
Yeah.
Especially since we're not sure exactly who has flipped.
Right.
And also, we do have to still take some care about the time tower. It would be better if we don't kill them. Though I suspect at this point it's probably safe to kill them because I think they're probably excised from history one way or the other.
They do, although, have 2 crit monsters on their team.
Yeah.
Which factors into the difficulty level.
3 crit monsters, thank you very much. We'll get to that. So, first thing that happens in combat, Croesus hands Aram Ben-Jarrad a force bead. That's one of those things, it's like a grenade. You throw it, and it makes a sphere of a force field, spherical force field around the target, which basically takes them out of combat. It does do some ongoing damage, but the important thing is it takes them out of combat to save ends.
Right.
So Croesus hands this to Aram Ben-Jarrad because Aram Ben-Jarrad's a crit monster. He's going to hit with this. So he throws it at the Mind Flayer leader, the level 24 controller, and immediately takes... We won initiative, of course, because Serendipity rolled a 20 on her initiative check. So, yeah, Aram Ben-Jarrad throws this at the leader and takes the leader out of the next round of combat.
Right. Yay.
And then I think he used a action point or something as well to do it. Because I remember Aram also did an attack in the first round. That was more than just taking out the leader. So I guess he must have spent an action point.
Yeah.
He jumped down into the pit with the giant brain and turned into a wolf and bit the brain. And of course, critically hit. So he bit it on the neck, I guess, to try and decapitate the brain.
Found a weak spot.
Did a massive amount of damage. Didn't quite bloody it, but it was massive. Then who went next?
He had a thing where if he acted during an action point, he got to make a free basic attack or something that he critted on and did massive damage. Now the Elder Brain was bloodied.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. This wasn't my original intention with this encounter, but the party had worked it so that now mind players were all fighting, and the Elder Brain was the only thing holding them together. So there was 6 mind players who were like, screw this, we're going with the party. There was some that were like, screw this, we like eating brains and being evil, we're going to fight to the death. But the majority were like, well, we kind of think the party makes sense, but the Elder Brain is big and scary and beats us, so we're just going to fight with it unless it's losing. So then it became load bearing.
Right.
And if you cut off the head, the rest will fall. And it wouldn't have been like that otherwise, but that's how it was.
Yeah.
So if they can take out the Elder Brain, then suddenly
they have
combat
authority. Yeah.
Now, our combat strategy wasn't entirely focused around this. It was also just sort of the fact that, hey, the Elder Brain is the biggest, scariest thing in the room.
Right.
Let's take it down first. But the net result was there's a lot of good reasons to focus fire on the Elder Brain. And so we were doing that. Fortunately, they were being careful to avoid those 2 brains on top. So
My brain.
And then, I think actually Croesus went first, now that I think of it, because he handed the force speed to Ben Gerard, and then he went over and locked down 2 of the mind flayers that were next to the leader, using his standard, armor and stand in front of him. I'm Croesus, I'm super annoying thing. So yeah, that I'm just trying to take into account what everybody did, and I think that was what Croesus did first. And then Ben Gerard threw the force speed and took the leader out.
And bit the thing in the neck.
And then bit the thing in the neck, yeah.
I think Hank went next, and he went over and attacked a random mind flayer.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything super significant coming out of that.
Did he actually hit? Because he's at a big penalty. Because he was puppeting his body.
I think he hit.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It wasn't very significant.
Yeah. Then I think Serendipity, Van Gogh, Strata Malorn, Top Road Tower, Shepherd's Hill, Strata, Doom Delayer went. And she hit the Elder Brain with something. I can't remember what she hit it with.
I don't think she hit the Elder Brain.
She didn't?
No. Oh, no. You're right. She did an area effect that did hardly any damage.
Oh, it was a thing that makes you... Yes.
But it was psychic, and she critted, and she automatically rolled the best crit result and was able to get... That creature is unable to damage her, because it's psychologically manipulated that it will never hurt her ever again.
So a bunch of the Mind Flayers and the Elder Brain now cannot harm Serendipity. So then it was my turn, and I pulled out... what's it called? It's an encounter power. It's like masks of something or other. Basically, it's a way that I can create... It's not a mark by name, but in effect, it's a mark between an enemy that I hit and one of my allies. And so I fired at the Elder Brain, and I wasn't really expecting... I'm at -9 on all my stuff, so I'm not really going to be very effective this combat. But if I can hit with this, I will basically make it so the Elder Brain gets a -5 penalty on attacking anyone except Serendipity, who it can attack. I rolled a 20.
Nice.
So yeah, party's got another crit monster. Ooh. And I killed it. It does massive damage.
Right.
And I was using a vicious weapon. So it is D12s on it. It's a +6 vicious weapon. So yeah, I did a massive quantity of damage, and the Elder Brain died. And Cricket's strings were promptly cut.
Yeah.
So she immediately flops over because she does not have a brain. And was being remote controlled via the Elder Brain that she just killed.
Defeated me!
It was worth it. Oh, I should also mention, we knew going into this that we might have to hurriedly put Cricket and Hank's brains back.
Right.
So we pre-opened the backs of our heads and just had a cloth draped over them. Because it would be really gross and dirty otherwise.
Sounds very familiar.
So we're fighting with the backs of our heads open. Anyway, this is where the brain surgery stuff gets really realistic. Yeah. Anyway.
Did you bust out Surgeon Simulator and force them to play it?
I just think
should
if
have.
they poured some
She was just
potion
crit.
pour some potion in there, the gaping skull wound, and then just fire the brain in there. Probably fine.
That's the usual. That's what we used to do for. I had a rule that if you got decapitated, like by a vorpal weapon or something, last edition, as long as someone poured a potion and stuck your head back on, they would glue it together and you'd be fine. You had 1 round to be saved.
6 seconds. That seems reasonable.
Yeah, the brain won't die that quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah. Speaking of dying brains, our Hank and Cricket's brains are now sitting in this dying Elder Brain. So there is some urgency now.
It's having its death throes. I had to have death throes for a round because otherwise the combat just would have been over.
Very boring.
So then the undecided, I still had them attack the party for 1 round so that it wasn't the most lame thing ever.
Now, I was also given the opportunity to play the Mind Flayer that had been controlling Cricket
Brian
before,
Flayer?
Brian Flayer.
Yeah.
And So I only had one round with him, unfortunately. Would have been cool if I'd had more, but one of his abilities was if he gets hit with an attack and he's adjacent to a thrall, he can interpose the thrall and the thrall takes damage.
Yeah.
So I had to move over next to Hank, because technically Hank is a thrall.
Oh, Hank, but nevertheless.
Yeah. And then he like put on a pose like, okay, I'm going to defend you guys, I'm on your side.
Right.
But really he wanted to be next to Hank so that he could use Hank as a meat shield. You know, just because
It's
he's...
best for him that didn't get that
Yeah,
way.
yeah. But, you know, just because he doesn't want to... Or it's not even a case of not wanting to eat brains anymore. Even though he's realized he doesn't have to eat brains, doesn't have to cut off his brain, doesn't mean he's a good guy. But anyway, that was pretty much his turn, was getting in position to be defensive and be on the party's side and all that kind of stuff. And then a whole lot of Mind Flayer stuff happened where they tried attacking party members. Oh yes, another thing Cricket did in her turn. She had like a standard left over or something. So she pulled something out of the bag of tricks because I figured, you know, I'm going to go offline when the Elder Brain dies. Maybe if I've got a summoned animal, I can keep operating the summoned animal.
Right,
Let's find out. So I pulled out a warhorse.
Okay.
And I tossed that next to Serendipity. And Serendipity, anyone who rode the warhorse, you get a +5 on damage. So she was gung-ho to get on top of that warhorse.
Right.
But then the Mind Flayers had her turn and they killed it. And so she was really upset because she thought she would look really cool riding a warhorse.
Yeah.
Poor horse. It appeared in this horrible chamber full of brains and Cthulhuoid horrors. Immediately was hit by a mind blast that like twisted its barely existent comprehension of reality, and it died. Its life was pure torment.
It's basically the whale from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Anthedon did
Felt
worse
worse.
things with summoned horses, though.
Yeah.
You remember there was in the previous campaign there was this horrible evil temple like ziggurat made of meat or something,
Okay.
and there was this monster in the bottom that lived in this horrible pit full of acid slime and nastiness and stuff. But it was a fairly small room, and the opening gambit of combat there was I cast a spell which summons a bunch of riding horses and completely filled the room. Every square was full of riding horses. Just to screw with the monster. I mean, there was no way they could do any actual damage to it, but now the whole place is filled with screaming, panicking, desperate horses trying to get away.
As they're slowly melting in the atmosphere.
It helped somehow too. I don't remember because I remember you guys didn't really have to fight that thing.
I think basically it was just to give it more targets. So, because it wasn't very intelligent, so I figured if there's a whole lot of horses down there, it'll attack the horses first.
Right.
And even though it can pop them at will, it's still wasting rounds.
Yeah.
And we can spend those rounds hitting it from above and stuff.
Right.
I think that was the basic plan. But anyway, the warhorse did nothing in this combat. It soaked up a mind blast, I guess.
That was an area effect.
Oh, never mind.
It hit everyone, including the warhorse.
Yeah.
A lot of the Mind Flayers attacked each other. Does that make sense?
I think the warhorse is named the Paul Vesterson.
There were two mind flayers that were busy trying to pull each other's brains out.
By the end, there were like 5 pairs.
Face
And I'm
wrestling.
like trying to suck each other's brains out. The ones that attacked the party didn't really accomplish much. They hurt them a little bit, but it was pretty minor. Of course, this took a bit of damage, which was unusual, but nothing too serious.
So then the party embarrassed them like Vanthus.
Well, I don't know. It's largely because of the infighting, I think, that we did so well.
Yeah.
If they had all as a unified force attacked us, and also if they hadn't like folded once the Elder Brain died,
Right.
this would have been really nasty. I mean, 2 of us didn't have our brains going into the fight.
Right.
We've burned through like all our dailies already.
But you do have a crit monster.
We do have the crit monsters. Those are the things that really made it a big difference.
Yeah, I felt confident making it really hard because of the
Yeah.
script monsters.
Like,
If they hadn't role-played their way into a situation, it might have been an extremely difficult fight.
right.
Now, next it was the party's turn, and even though you can sort of tell things had the tide had turned very decisively against them, I must talk about the next round of the party's actions because it's probably the worst thing that's ever happened to Cricket.
no.
She probably doesn't really understand what has happened yet, but when she finds out what has happened, this is going to be nightmare fuel. So yeah, the Elder Brain's dying. And Cricket and Hank have had their strings cut, and Cricket and Hank's brains are down there, and they're going to be in trouble in a round or two because they don't have life support anymore.
Right.
But the backs of our skulls are open, and Serendipity is standing by with her 20 rolls and her heal check and magic and all that. She just needs the brains.
Right.
Now, who's down there in the pit? Aram Ben-Jarrad.
Right.
Because Aram bit the brain earlier.
Right.
So Aram runs up to the elder brain, turns into a wolf, grabs one of the brains in his mouth, and runs up to Serendipity to deliver the brain.
Right, like a good doggy.
In his mouth.
I seem to very much disturbed.
And
so now you got dog slobber all over your brain.
Yeah, well, initially we weren't sure which brain it was. Aram Ben-Jarrad made a roll to find out. Like
this one tastes like Hank.
Exactly. Which one is? Who's it smell like? Who's it smell like? Because he was a dog at the time, right? Yeah. So he made the roll and figured, oh yeah, this tastes like Cricket.
Yeah.
So he had my brain in her mouth. And so he ran up there and delivered the brain to Serendipity and said, I got Hank's brain. Because, Aram Ben-Jarrad is a merry prankster.
Yes.
And is curious to see what will happen. Fortunately, Serendipity crits on her insight check.
Right.
So she realized.
We had to check it out because he also got 19 on his bluff check.
He has a good bluff check. She has a good insight check. So it was actually a question, an open question.
2 crit monsters go up against each other.
And fortunately, she figured out that Aram Ben-Jarrad was lying again.
But it didn't end there because then he was like, but why don't you just try putting him in the other brains? Because wouldn't that be funny just to see what it's like? She's like, no. She was not interested.
Yeah.
That's too bad. That would have been fucking hilarious.
That would have been pretty hilarious.
I still have dog tongue all over my brain, though, so it's not exactly come out.
Just towel it off before you throw it back in there.
She didn't.
Throw it back. Wait, it's still open, so you could just take a hose.
I need brain bleach.
I think from now on, if you're not thinking about something else or whatever, every once in a while you'll realize, wait, I can faintly smell dog breath, and then it'll disappear.
So yeah.
So your brain was returned to your brain casing.
Right. So Cricket's brain is back in her head, but at what cost? And that was sort of where we ran out of time. We started this session a little bit later than usual. But yeah, so it looks like the combat is wrapping up. It's just a matter of retrieving Hank's brain, which I suspect won't be too difficult.
Yeah, the only difficult enemy left is the leader.
Yeah, he came out of his horse bubble after a round.
Right.
But all his allies and stuff are busy face wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically, I just had the background. Instead of having to track 20 guys fighting each other, I'm just like, they're just fighting each other.
Right.
So now it's basically just the party and the leader, who's level 24, but still, there's 4 of them and hopefully soon 5 of them.
Yeah.
So
and 2 of them are crit monsters, and it's
the only reason
psychically crit you can't hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm going to win eventually.
Yeah.
I guess he could run away, but
we're standing in the. I guess he could teleport.
It's not.
They can crit endurance checks.
I know that Brian Flair could teleport.
No escape from this.
Yeah.
Although his teleport is called Cradle of the Elder Brain, so I think.
So was mine.
No, but that's what I mean.
Yeah,
I think it's supposed to be now. There's no Elder Brain.
Right.
You probably can't teleport away from the Elder Brain. I mean, it doesn't say that in the rules, but that's clearly the intended flavor.
Well, it doesn't matter. If he runs away, he's dead. He has future knowledge.
Right.
He has to stay within range of Panadar.
So he would basically teleport away, and then rocks would fall, and he would die.
Yeah.
Couldn't he live a life not utilizing future knowledge?
Fate doesn't care. It will,
I think if he chose to never use it, he might be okay, but I think that's easier said than done.
Yeah, right. And I mean, we know
if he continues to live in isolation, then it's pretty easy.
We know that the Tower of Time will crush you for future intent.
Oh, that's true.
Killed, what's his name, the elf who made the things. Because
I'm going to go save...
He had big plans.
Yeah.
And then he left the range of Panadar and was immediately killed.
By a dragon.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, I mean, I think theoretically he might have a chance, but practically speaking, he has no chance.
Yeah.
Right. unless he turns on his previous beliefs and joins the party.
Our party being our party, we might still offer him the chance, and then he'll say, "Oh yeah, sure, I renounce my brain-eating ways," and then we'll have to deal with him for the next 8 sessions.
I was hoping you'd have to kill more mind flayers before you won.
Because now they're all
now you have
kill
a
the ones that are just straight up bad. You've got like 15 mind flayers.
What could you do with those? Man, if this was Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah. I don't know. Actually, there's not a lot we can do with them because Time Tower, we have to get them to the present.
Yeah.
And then they're free agents.
You could just leave. The problem will solve itself.
Yeah, but some of them are.
They'll try to stop you.
Yeah,
say no.
And some of them have renounced their brain-eating ways, and we're wussies that way,
Well, and it'll be difficult. Well, not impossible, but difficult to betray them because Brian Flayer and Bob Flayer will know whether the party would typically betray them. They won't know for sure what they're thinking anymore. But
they have
would the party say, "Oh
knowledge.
yeah, we'll help you," and then just like ditch them at the first thing? If they would do that, then they'll know.
Yeah.
And they won't make that deal.
It doesn't mean that they won't still do it.
No, but it's very unlikely. They know it's unlikely. All right. So that
And with that,
and that was the session. So next time around we'll have to actually deal with these mind flayers.
I always thought the Ood were a little odd, but these guys have problems.
So, I never really stopped to wonder what my friends' brains would taste like, but today I discovered they're actually pretty good. Yeah, a little bit sweet. It was nice.
You better hope you don't get any weird diseases from that.
From Cricket's brain?
Yeah, like prions or something.
Do you think she has brain diseases? I could go brush my teeth.
So, this is probably the worst experience of my life. I'm completely deprived of any sensory input whatsoever, except for pain. And and for some reason, I think there is a concept here in the void. A concept of dog breath. Why does sensory deprivation feel like dog breath? Oh, there's a light. Aha! Oh, thank goodness. And I'm back in the right body, too. They figured it out. Oh, thank goodness. That would have been even worse. Ow. 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 Dog breath.
Serendipity, are you sure we can't switch them just for a while? Come on, let's switch their brains, please. Think of science.
No.
Oh.
Well, this has been an eventful day, and we seem to be doing quite well, and the horrible pile of brains is dead. But I'm still disappointed. I'm feeling like I lost out on something. I never got to ride that horse.